$10,000 as a hazard pay grant, $50,000 as a lifeline grant, $10,000 as an EIDL grant. Joe Biden wants you to get all these grants, but in this video, I'm going to go over those grants and existing grants you can get right now. Moreover, I'll go over the breaking news as Joe Biden addressed press about the grants that he wants essential workers to get right away. It's incredible great news, and this is Purple. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Purple, in which I go over grants, hazard pay, and existing grants. I'm going to get you money, and I'm going to get it for you right now. If you've not subscribed to this channel, please do. I'm getting you money right now. I'm not talking about legislation for 5 weeks from now, 5 years from now, 5 months from now. I'm focused on getting you money right now. But I'll also cover what Joe Biden said minutes ago, which concerns stuff further out. And also, I detail how you can get this money in your hands very quickly because you need it right now. Also, like this video. In this video, I'll be going over the hazard pay grant, the EIDL grant, the lifeline grant. All incredible great news. $10,000, $10,000, and $50,000. Then I'll be going over Joe Biden's remarks about hazard pay, about essential workers minutes ago. This is breaking news. But I'm going to start with grant money you can get right now. Let's get to the breaking news. The breaking news as you sit here today is that there's grants out there across the board. If you are on Social Security, SSI, SSDI, railroad benefits, you're retired, you qualify for these grants. Don't let anyone in any comment or any place, oops, as I drop something, say anything negative that would suggest otherwise. These grants are made for exactly those types of people. There's only two types of people that don't qualify for grants. One, people who made a lot of money in 2019, or two, people who are in cities or counties where they don't have those grants anymore. Those situations almost don't exist anywhere. So how do you find them? Cities and counties are announcing grant programs by the minute. What is this money and what is it coming from? It's coming from CARES Act 1. It's money that was dedicated by the federal government to states to use on you, not anyone else, but you. Then the states had to give it to cities and counties. Well, why are we talking about March money now in November? Because states were slow giving it to cities and counties in their state. Now they suddenly have it and they're starting to spend it. They're announcing these grants by the minute, by the day, and when they announce them, they're there and poof, they're gone. Sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't. And what I've detailed on this channel is that you apply for them. No one else applies for them. The only rare exception is in the case of hazard pay-ish grants. What's incredible great news is that you find this by going on Google News or looking on your local news websites for these grants. They're announced by your cities and counties, and the way they announce it is through local news. They're not announced through YouTube channels. They're not announced through national news. They're not announced in any other way but local news outlets, your broadcast news channels and your print media, and also your online local news. So you can go on Google News if you have internet access or Wi-Fi and look for CARES Act plus grant plus your city's name. If you live in then also look under your county's name. Two ways to also think about how to search. If you are in a very small town, go wider for your county. If you're in a region, go to the region, like a tri-state city area, go to the region. Don't go broad like the entire state of California. That won't help. But here's an example. This morning I went online and I looked for CARES Act 1, plus grants, plus California, because clearly I wanted to do a broad scope coverage for you on this recording. And I found not one, not two, but 3 grants announced for California residents just in the last few days. One was in Alameda County, one was in Modesto County, and one was in LA County. What's important to understand is that every grant is slightly different, but they're generally for rent and food, which applies for everyone. They're also sometimes for stimulus checks, which applies for everyone. That was what happened in Orange County today. Orange County, Florida. 15,000 people got an approximately $1,800 stimulus check. And then sometimes they apply for hazard pay-ish, essential workers, frontline workers, small businesses, or something a little bit more restrictive. Bottom line is the money is out there. It is literally out there. The best way to find it is simply stay on top of it. I've had countless viewers who have found these things literally within minutes to go before the application window closed. And the demand for them is very broad, so you need to get them right now. Next, there is other money that is out there that is coming shortly thereafter. This is money that is not right now, but right after. That is EIDL grant, EIDL the Lifeline grant, and the hazard pay grant, and the rent grant. I always forget about the rent grant. Biden proposes to have you get a $10,000 EIDL grant if you're an Uber or Lyft driver, sole practitioner, anything that you do things as a side hustle, like an Airbnb operator. Then he also has a grant for the CDC. If you're an essential worker, he also has a grant that is hazard pay-ish that would pay you via the CDC. Third, he has a Lifeline grant. That's $50,000. That's an incredible amount of money for frontline workers. Finally, he has other grants in there, including rent aid grants. So who are the people qualify for these things? The rent one is based upon anyone that qualifies for a stimulus check. It's generally people who have income of a lower threshold that qualify for it. The Lifeline grant, anyone that qualifies for EIDL will qualify for Lifeline. The CDC, anyone that's essential worker. And the hazard pay, anyone that's essential worker. What's incredibly important to understand about these grants is that they're there and then they're gone. You can't sit around and wait. You can't just sit back and not move. Today, when Orange County announced their grant program, it was not the first time they announced it. It was the second time they've had it. And when they opened it, it was closed within 15 minutes because they had 15,000 people apply for it. Several weeks ago, I also detailed another example. It was, I believe, in Georgia. And in Georgia, they had announced a grant program for for a particular county in Georgia. And that county in Georgia's grant program was for essential workers. Guess what? They opened the application. They said the employer has to apply for it. And within one day, 80% of the money had been applied for by 3 businesses. Yes, because 3 businesses in the state of Georgia, in that county, were dominated by hospitals and grocery stores that employed a lot of people that came right in and took up all the money very quickly. Now, I'm not telling you this to be negative. I'm telling you this to move fast. Don't be cautious. Don't be complacent. You need to move fast because when these grants are announced, they move very quickly. Kevin Lee, one of my original viewers of this channel back from April 26, had watched on a local news program in Houston, Texas, that they were announcing a grant program for rent. It was announced on a 5 o'clock local broadcast news. It was not on print media. It was nowhere else to be found. He saw it. He went and applied. Didn't hear much about it for about a week. Then suddenly, bam, he got a notification. He got approved. I've had a lot of viewers who have gotten approved for rent, that have gotten approved for money, or that have gotten approved for stimulus. They found it, they applied, and they got it in. Next, how do you get hazard pay grant? And how big is it? And what about Mitch? And would Mitch agree to us? First, Mitch is likely to agree to any type of CDC grant. Second, Mitch is likely to agree to any essential workers grant. Third, Mitch is likely to agree to an EIDL grant that's smaller and tailored, but he's not likely to agree to a big $50,000 grant. That's that number that Mitch just doesn't like. What's important to understand is that Republicans want state and local money that is given to state and local to ultimately land in the hands of you, essential workers. They don't want the money to go to something big, bold, and husky like the governor's office or the governor's pension fund. They want it to go to fire rescue, police, and things like that, essential workers on a local level. And what's important to understand is this is likely to get passed because everyone wants it to be paid. And as the pandemic rages on, as we surge from 120,000 to 137,000 COVID cases newly a day, essential workers need to be paid hazard pay. So how do you apply for hazard pay? What's an essential worker and how much could you get and how does it work? Let me go over that right now. As hazard pay is probably one of the slowest payout items that I talk on this channel about. So this is not right now money. This is not right thereafter money. This is right after money. This is right thereafter money. Because first of all, they have to approve it as a bill. They have to set up the agency. The application has to be filed and then the money has to be sent out. You see how many steps are involved? It's something that just takes a little bit of time. The ways that the bill need to be changed are the following. First, there's a provision in there that the employers apply for you. What? And the provision says the employers may apply for you. What? Yes. So if your place of work is now shut down because they've gone bankrupt, or your place of work has fired you, or your place of work has simply shut their doors, or your place of work is just mismanaged and the boss has no receipt of previous paycheck stubs, they won't apply for you. And suddenly you don't get hazard pay. Oh, yes, that's not bueno. That's no bueno. So what you need to do is go on social media and do the hashtag Purple Power hazard pay. And tweet Joe Biden's transition team, Transition 47. Tweet his chief of staff, Don Clavin. Tweet these people and say, wait a second. You want us to have a hazard pay. You want us to get hazard pay, but you have it set up that the employer may apply. And my employer, I don't think is going to apply for it. My employer doesn't exist anymore. My employer this. It's a categorically bad section of the bill. Next. $10,000. How would you get it? Well, it basically looks at the amount of hours you work from January 2020 up to the present and continues all the way to 60 days after the pandemic ends. Take that number of hours, including overtime, part-time, full-time, and part-time hours, and take that number of hours, times it by $13 an hour. If you get over $10,000, bam, you get $10,000. It's that simple. If you get less than that number when you make the calculation, bam, you'll get that number and then continue to get $13 an hour going forward. If you made a lot of money in 2019, then they'll pay you $5,000 instead of $10,000 for essential workers. Who are essential workers? Tune into Purple Power Live every night at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, in which I go live and I answer your questions about hazard pay, grants, and escalated benefits. But generally, it's grocery, transport, car transport, pharmacy, medical, and anything in those dominions, and it's all money for you. So what are the real issues that I have a problem with? Well, today Joe Biden spoke to members of press minutes ago, and he talked about his economic recovery plan, and he talked about the importance of essential workers, and he talked about the need to pay essential workers right now because we're going into another phase of the pandemic. And then he said, go pass the HEROES Act. Well, there's a problem with that. The last version of the HEROES Act took out hazard pay. It's no longer in there. The other problem is that the original version of the HEROES Act, the May version of HEROES Act, does have hazard pay in it, but says it's just discretionary. The employer may apply for you. Who wants a bill where you may get money? We need to get money, not maybe get money. What is this? We don't elect, let me say it this way. Are we sort of paying Nancy Pelosi's salary, or are we definitely paying her salary? No, she's definitely getting paid her salary. So if she's definitely getting paid her salary, why are we potentially only maybe getting hazard pay if our employer considers to apply for it? It's a mistake and needs to be revised. Ultimately, Biden wants to revise these provisions because these are transition documents that he's putting out saying, this is what I want to have done, this is what I want to have done. And those transition documents are not consistent with the HEROES Act. He may have said to members of press minutes ago, go past the HEROES Act, but he really doesn't support all the provisions of the HEROES Act. It doesn't have the $2,400 of SSI. It doesn't have the student debt forgiveness. It doesn't have the hazard pay provision on the last version. And it doesn't have a lot of other things. Ultimately, this is money thereafter. But for now, follow the guidance at the beginning of this video to get money right now, and you can get to financial stability to go forward in this pandemic. If you have questions or comments about hazard pay, tune into Purple Power Live at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and drop your comments into that live chat. I'll be live chatting with you and here to help you as always. If you've not subscribed, please do. Go to the first channel, subscribe. Also like this video. Coming up next is Being a Mitch with big developments on what could be coming from Congress on your stimulus relief. Have a good afternoon.